Hey folks, we're here for another installment of Tell Me More with Allie Richards, and I'm Allie Richards, being the interviewer today with an expert from the field. I'm so grateful to Superintendent Jamie Kinnarney, who is here to really dig in with me on details of education policy and vision, and really help me explore some of my areas of my platform on education and workforce. So thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Allie.
It's really a pleasure to chat with you.
I'm looking forward to this.
Great. So why don't you tell everyone who you are?
Jamie Kinnarney, Superintendent of Schools of the White River Valley Supervisory Union, which serves 10 towns throughout the White River Valley. Should I go over what they are?
Sure.
So Granville, Hancock,
Yep.
Rochester, Stockbridge, Bethel, Royalton, Chelsea, Tunbridge, Sharon, Stratford, 3 counties.
Yeah, that is a big swath. And when I say it, I think of a lot of like mountain ranges through there too. It's an interesting geographic region.
It is. It's challenging.
I bet it is.
Yep.
But also, I know you a bit, and I've seen what you've been able to do, and I think you're up for the challenge. Some pretty exciting stuff happening.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
And we'll get into that.
This is year 7 for me.
Year 7?
Yep.
Okay, so you're making some real inroads here. Yep. All right, I want to hear about them. So tell me, what do you love about Vermont, Jamie?
Well, I grew up here, South Royalton, Vermont, on a dairy farm.
Nice.
And what I love is that in Vermont, I really feel like I get to know my neighbors, right, and my community. And I value community, and I value being able to go out in the backyard and hike. And so the beauty of the state, but also just how as a state, I think, you know, this idea of wrapping around our fellow neighbors and lifting them up, like that happened for me throughout life. On the farm, right? Like if we need to help or support, people were there. So that's, I mean, I went to Linden, I went to Castleton for grad school. Amazing. I have not left. I do travel, but I love all those aspects about Vermont.
That's amazing. I have to say, I grew up on a dirt road in Orange County, and there's this phenomenon I've called the Vermont wave. I've been thinking about it since I was a kid. You are on a dirt road, and no matter what, you give a wave, you give a nod, 2 fingers, whatever it is, off the steering wheel to whoever's passing you, because it's like, we are on this little dirt road together, getting by. It doesn't matter what your bumper sticker is.
That's so true.
You know what
I mean? Are you a nodder? Or?
I'm a...
Yeah, I kind of do the nod.
Yeah, just the nod. But you know, the other person sees it.
Oh, absolutely.
You can tell. Yeah. I love that. I have always loved this.
Me too.
All right, so then let's go to the other side. Tell us, what do you think is not working in Vermont right now?
Well, you know, I think affordability is a real challenge for families out there. And I see then the families that I serve and the community members I serve. And, you know, I think, you know, we're blessed in regards to my partner and I. She's a principal. I'm a superintendent of schools.
Oh, wow. 24/7 education.
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
And, you know, we've got 2 children at home, but, you know, like I see how it's challenging for folks to make ends meet.
Sure.
And so I think we definitely have an affordability crisis. And I think what we're also struggling with, Allie, is a vision of how to grow and foster the state.
Yeah.
I think what we've been doing here for the last decade is consistently tightening our belts and trying to keep taxes low, but there's been no vision of how we're actually going to grow. And what I think we've seen with that is folks leaving the state. And, you know, we talk about we have an enrollment crisis, you know, in schools in Vermont. Mm-hmm. We ought to look back and do some reflecting of why is that?
Yeah, exactly. Where are the humans?
Right.
You know, 30,000 fewer kids in schools now in Vermont than we had 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. That is a significant number, Jamie. Well, I agree with you. And that's a big reason why I'm running. So where do you think we should focus our change?
Well, I think we need to look at housing.
Yeah.
I mean, I did some work at the legislature this past year for Let's Build Homes. Mm-hmm. Is it Build Homes?
Mm-hmm. It sure is. I happen to know because they asked, is it okay as a former CEO of Let's Grow Kids if we say Let's Build Homes? And I said, we don't own the word let's. Please go forth, be wildly successful. We need more homes here.
That's why I was going to say let's grow homes.
Exactly.
So, I mean, right, like we need to make certain that folks can afford first-time home buyers or second-time home buyers, like to be able to afford to buy a house, raise a family, right? and be able to go on vacation once or twice a year. And so I think affordability and housing are a big thing. Certainly healthcare is a major challenge. I mean, if we look at the education fund, one of the driving factors in regards to cost is healthcare.
Yeah, sure.
I'm also on the Gifford board, so I see that perspective as well in Randolph.
Yeah.
And so, I think that those issues alone have just got to be tackled with a forward-thinking approach to around how are we going to grow. And then I think that I see it as a three-legged stool. It's education, it's housing, it's healthcare.
Yep.
And if we could get all those with a vision that focuses on all three parts of that stool, then I think we can move forward.
Ooh, you are speaking my language. All right, so housing and healthcare is the twin pillars, and I have twins, so I'm partial. Twin pillars of our economic plan to grow Vermont. I mean, I really think it's this thing where people say, you can't tax and spend your way out of this. You can't cut your way out of this. We've got to grow our way out of this. So I am really relating to what you were saying here. I am vibing with your style. So that's a good segue. Why are you excited about this campaign?
Because as we've met now several times, I see an energy and an enthusiasm and a true belief for growing the state. And, as a fellow Vermonter, that is incredibly important to me. And the work that I did in education in the legislature the last 2 years to push back on major consolidation was a fear that once again we were approaching something around trying to reduce costs, but what we were going to do is kill our rural towns.
Yeah.
If you don't have a school and a viable elementary school for kids to come to, then families aren't going to move in. Families are going to move away. And so I kept saying that whole time is we're not talking just about education here. We are talking about how are we going to make certain that rural Vermont towns are viable to move into the future.
Bingo. I mean, you mentioned education, healthcare, housing, these things interconnect, and they are systemic changes that have to be made, multi-year plans with systemic changes. That ain't easy, but it requires all of our focus, and a real, building of a coalition and understanding of how the things interact,
And understand that they are interconnected.
Of course.
Right? You can't do this work in silos.
Exactly. I love that. All right. So then in 2 years, how do we know we're making progress?
Well, I think that in 2 years is that we've got a real vision and a roadmap for success in regards to how we're going to work to fix healthcare, how we have a roadmap that really looks to the future in regards to a decade from now. What are we envisioning in regards to housing?
Yeah.
And how do we have a plan that creates efficiencies in regards to education, but ensures that local community schools are at the heart of their town, right?
I love that.
And so I think that in the next 2 years, it's not just talking about it and or taking a hammer to it, as I heard some folks say in the legislature this past year when it came to education, right? What's the hammer going to be at the end if folks don't merge? It is about having a well-articulated plan that you can see and set forward to with actionable tasks that can be measured over the next 5 years, 10 years.
I'd love you to expand on that, especially the community school piece, because I think, we talked about this. My dad is a public high school teacher, was my teacher at Oxbow High School. I was on the State Board of Education as a 15-year-old when Howard Dean appointed me. I think the conviction I hold most dearly is the transformational power of education. Specifically of public education. It's the thing we have, Jamie. It's the tool we have, to make a more just and equitable world, to put everyone on the same playing field here, give people what they need to thrive right from the jump. And so also I devoted the last 10 years of my life to early childhood education, right? For that foundation block to the whole spectrum. So community schools, I think, hold so much promise for where we need to go because of it understands the value and centers that. And it talks about creative solutions of really giving people what they need. And it also addresses affordability in a big way. So can you just expand a little bit about your work on that and what the dream of community schools means to you?
Yeah, thanks. So my career really had focused on a multi-tiered system of supports work. MTSS, folks would have heard of it, right? And for folks that are in education, they're like, what? But what I realized is that MTSS work around building systems and structures around early interventions and supports and getting kids what they need to succeed and families what they need to succeed is all held in the belief system of community schools.
Yeah.
All right. And so what I say about community schools when we've done work with the University of Vermont and the Agency of Education is like, yes, there's pillars and there's a systematic way to go about it, but the first thing you got to do is make certain you created a belief system across the entire organization that says that we are community minded and that we are going to truly partner and be a hub with our other support systems within the community to wrap around our families and kids.
Yeah.
And so we've worked really strongly with the Clara Martin Center, who's our regional mental health provider, with our local pediatrician's office in Royalton, with Dr. Miller, and with Gifford. Amazing. To have pediatricians in our buildings. Our kids can be seen every week by a pediatrician. We provide both restorative and preventative dental care.
That's
in
incredible.
In all 10 of our schools.
And you aren't paying for all that yourself. You are weaving, braiding, funding, and services.
Absolutely.
That's the dream.
And if you look at our special ed cost, we are well below the state average in annual year-over-year growth.
So you're saving money.
Yeah.
And you are increasing outcomes. Yeah. You're acknowledging that schools aren't just a place for academics. Really, you are seeing everything for your kids and their families, and that's what they need. But instead of putting your head in the sand, you're finding a way to do it that actually is not increasing your costs in a way that's out of control.
We will do 50,000 meals for families this summer.
50,000
in the meal program that we offer. And I have to remind our citizens sometimes, they'll say, well, that's on my dime. I say, absolutely not. No, that's all reimbursed, right? Those are all reimbursable meals.
Yeah.
Federally reimbursed, by the way. We need to make certain we have federal money coming into the state. To make certain that we can do these types of programs with our universal meals. But that's actually an added revenue source for us, right? So now we're feeding our families in our communities, making certain our kids have nutritious breakfast and lunch throughout the summer.
Yeah.
And we're able to add revenue booster for our food service program.
I mean, that's Vermont to me. You just explained it. You are feeding kids so they can learn and supporting families in a way they truly need it now in the world that we live in. And you're creating jobs in Vermont because it's local food. So these stable contracts with these farms are letting them stay open, support their communities, be, part of a vibrant community, and keep those jobs here. So that's beautiful. And you really touched upon something, part of what I think when we fight, fierce little Vermont does our thing, and we fight against, the sort of destruction coming from Washington, D.C. We also, part of the fight is fighting for those dollars that are owed to us. We paid into those dollars.
Absolutely.
And they're ours, and they feed our kids. They run our highways, they support our healthcare. So I think that's part of the fight.
Absolutely, right? They provide academic supports.
100%. So now you said something earlier, MTSS, right? That's the sort of thing where people will probably glaze over. Yeah. But you described it perfectly. And so it's one of those things where, what's the spirit of this? Like this multi-tiered system of support. It is what you said, it's this philosophy, it's a framework. If everyone is on the same page, that literally, my understanding is you are giving kids what they need when and where they need it. So everyone is on this ladder and everyone is getting, what they need to thrive to get to graduation and beyond. That's really what it is.
Absolutely, right? And, there's sometimes kids do need to be served via an IEP due to a disability protected, right? But I have often said to teachers or families when they're asking about an IEP is, what is it that you're actually asking for, right? Like you're actually looking for some type of service or support.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we can go and pursue an IEP.
Right.
But I want to get that service and support in place.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be that we can only do that because a student has an IEP, right? So this is opening up services and supports to all kids, both through intervention, but also making certain we have enrichment and extension too for kids. We want all kids to grow.
Yeah.
Full years of growth every year. Our highest achieving kids, and certainly those kids that are struggling, we need them to grow a year and a half's worth of growth, right? Because we need to fill gaps. And so it's also making certain we're being really data informed in the work that we're doing.
Which, speaking of data, I think you were the one that alerted me to the chronic absenteeism emergency we have in education in Vermont. And it's so interesting to me because the governor has really talked about education as a key thing for years. And when I'm in communities, they're torn apart by the way the conversation is being held. And I see a lot of it is the lack of North Star and vision and goals. And the idea that what are we actually talking about? is it property tax panic? Only? Is it educational excellence? Is it public education? And you don't even hear about something like chronic absenteeism, which we should be ringing the alarms left and right on this. So can you just tell me about what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so chronic absenteeism, again, University of Vermont's partnering with our public schools really well right now.
I love hearing that.
We were able to receive a grant last year that helped us partner with Gifford in our local pediatrician's office, Dr. Miller, right on the green in South Royalton. And so what it allowed us to do is actually have someone represent our pediatricians at our student support team meetings every week to talk about students who are not attending school and recognizing, like, as a team, how do we wrap around these families and students, who has the best relationship and relational trust with them to work to get them back to school. Like, what barriers are making it so kids don't want to walk through the door?
Yeah.
And then going to work as a team to tear those barriers down.
Yeah.
We can't fill academic gaps and have kids achieve higher if we don't have them in our classrooms.
You're dang right.
And
that
so
seems like a
what you're talking
point.
about is that as a state, we were looking at the high school level, 40% chronic absenteeism rates and on average in our high schools in the state. That is a crisis.
40%.
Yes.
40%. That is crazy.
That's crazy.
And I don't think people know that.
No, I don't either. No. And that's what the headline should be, right? Yeah. That coming out of the pandemic, we had this unintended consequence around students becoming, just less aware in regards to taking a day here or there and the impact they would have on learning, right? Because, we were quarantining entire classrooms. So I think what happened is we got numb to the fact of, like, oh, Jamie misses school one day every 2 weeks.
Big deal.
Big deal. But no, that adds
Very
up.
big deal.
That's a very big deal, because all of a sudden, Jamie's going to lose a month of learning by the end of the school year.
Yeah. Right. Seems like a pretty basic starting point. If kids aren't here to teach them, then they can't get what they need.
And so then we're putting in these expensive academic interventions or social emotional interventions. But if the student's only here, 80% of the time, they're missing a day a week.
Yeah.
That's not a great return on investment. So we have been really focused on that over the last year. And what I'm proud to say is that we were able to take our chronic absenteeism as elementary through high school. We were about 20%. We were able to get it down. We're at 6.9%.
That's incredible.
That was huge. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. What you paint a picture for me that gets me my socks going up and down when I wear socks, which is not often, is it's not, all pain and gain to get through our educational crisis. You're painting this picture of getting back to the fundamentals, focusing on what kids really need by looking at data and looking at sort of the facts, Jack. Mm-hmm. And then you're saving money while you're improving outcomes, and you're innovating by working with the array of partners with their own funding, money they bring to the table, to really give kids and communities what they need. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely, right. And an example is working with Claire Martin, right? Like, I can get a high quality behavioral interventionist to serve our students that also comes with all the wraparound supports Claire Martin's able to bring.
Yeah.
And they're able to directly bill Medicaid, right? And so I'm able to offer that level of service at a much cheaper rate than I could if I was going to train someone up and provide that service. Yeah. Because, Allie, do you know what a family plan is now for an educator?
It's
$45,000. That's just the district's portion.
Oh my goodness, Jamie. When you talk about root causes, which, as you can tell, I'm obsessed with, because that's our chance for change. You go to the lever you can touch and pull that is going to have the ripple effect, okay? Early child education, right? You go to that lever. Yeah. Health care. I don't think we're having a rational conversation about education based on the values, based on centering the kid and what's good for student learning, because we aren't talking about the true cost drivers in many cases. And healthcare, you just painted the picture of why. 25% year-over-year increases in education spending are from healthcare costs. That is something we have to reckon with. And again, back to the beginning of our conversation, why are you starting as a superintendent with housing and healthcare as your two goals? That's where I'm starting as a candidate as well. These are our root causes. So, one of the pieces on my platform is also having, because of what you're saying is getting me so inspired. And I will say, visiting your schools really inspired me. We had these student guides who walked back. I've never seen people walk backwards so well before. They walked backwards while
student
they
ambassadors are
guided
pretty
me
impressive.
through the school. They showed me everything, and I loved. They gave a special stop at the music room, which I didn't ask them to do, but it was so special for me because my music teacher at Oxbow was such an important, pivotal person in my life. It just shows you like academics is rounded and there's enrichment and these things all interplay. And they were like, we just want to make sure we stop in the music room to show you like the magic here. They were amazing. Everything happening there was exciting. The outdoor classrooms, the love you could see between the students and their teachers, the community really feel of those schools. So I was so inspired. A big part of my platform is to have the Agency of Education become a service-oriented organization, service organization. Because this is nuanced, this is complicated. What I notice visiting schools, as I have since I was 15 in Vermont, you've seen one district, you've seen one district. So when Montpelier tries to push down big blankets, they don't fall onto the landscape properly. And so if you have an agency of education that is energetically out there with data we can trust, with modeling, with templates, with here's how your neighbor did it, communities of practice, here's two districts that are the same, let's get you together and see how you can learn from each other, with actually building, with vigor, these shared services, CISAs, that actually are going to save us money, that's really the ticket. I mean, can you comment on that?
I love that idea, right?
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you said service organization. Above my desk, it says WRVSU, Service Organization. That was my motto when I arrived. I said, our central office's focus and work is to make our teachers' jobs easier.
How can I help?
Right.
Well, and I just want to, thank you. So I often say, when I was, again, on a State Board of Education as a teenager, with this lens of living it, as the customer, I said the magic is between the student and the teacher.
Absolutely.
Can we put that in the middle and then wrap that instead of like education reform du jour, like it changes every single year? How about we go back to that fundamental and how are we all in service of that?
And so that's what I see the agency's role would be, right? Is like they are going in, they're providing technical assistance, they're working to provide high quality professional development for our educators, and they're flattening leadership. Right? Like we want to create places where all schools operate with high quality distributed leadership, where teachers are supported to aspire to create really great opportunities. What we don't want is a one-size-fits-all educational platform.
Yes.
We want to learn from each
Right.
other, right? Like we want to go into schools and learn, why is this school performing at such a high rate? And then how do we share that out across our schools, across the state? And so that is what I think we need to get the agency back to doing. I mean, the agency was doing that work at one point in time.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
And so, under Secretary Holcomb's tenure, I was seeing that work
Focus on
happening.
continuous
Yes.
improvement, cohort models of people helping each other.
Accurate data that we were
Accurate data.
accurate
Seems
data
like a
that
pretty
we were
low
using
bar.
to create, really strong, actual livable, breathable strategic plans that weren't just documents, right? That schools were actually held accountable to working on. And so I think that's the other thing that we've lost our way into, is that there's not this idea of like support, lift up, but then accountability too, right? Around actually implementing your action plan.
Amazing. All right, let me surprise you with something. I'm working something up, and I'm curious what your take is, because you see, students through and then off. And what I've been so disappointed by for decades is the lack of continuation of students onto anything past graduation from a high school in Vermont. And look, at the time when we have these rates of folks sort of falling out of, engagement, where we have these high rates of opiate, I mean, so many of my classmates from Oxbow I've lost to the opiate epidemic, to suicide, to mental health crisis. And, so we have this real issue of keeping folks engaged. We have a real issue of young people not being here in Vermont or feeling like they have ability to be here, educational or economic opportunity. And we have all these gaps in our workforce. So part of my platform is that every student has a plan upon graduation. And I want to make that even easier for them. I want to roll out a real plan for free community college for any Vermonter.
I love that.
Right out of high school or mid-career, change, what you're into. How does that strike you as someone who's in it, in the part of the the spectrum that you're in education.
No, I so appreciate that, right? Like, I'm a big proponent of early college. I've heard some folks say, well, that's taking kids out of our system. And as a first generation college graduate, I was the first one in my family on my father's side to go to college and graduate.
Wow. Wow.
Is that I saw kids who would have never taken the opportunity to go to college because just barriers, right? Or not having the model at home to go to college. That due to being able to do early college, when I was the principal at Williamstown, we had a bunch of students that would do early college at Norwich, who then went on to get four-year degrees,
Exactly.
right? Because
It's a
they were
hook.
lifted, they were
Yes.
supported into that. And so I love that idea.
I'm so happy to hear it. And I truly did surprise you with that.
You did surprise me. Yeah,
I'm telling you.
No, I mean, that again, that's a forward-thinking way of how we're going to keep people in the state, right? Like, how are we going to grow the workforce?
Exactly.
And
they are
those are the type
nimble
of
and they're
ideas
ready.
we need to have.
Right, I heard someone say to me the other day, we don't have enough mechanics. And we have sort of these CTE programs that get people right in, super engaged, they're excited, they feel it's something that they're good at. And, so we really have to like start with that CTE, the career tech ed part too. Because I hear a lot of times there's a scheduling problem. There was a student, I just heard this story that broke my heart. A student was so engaged in this mechanic, sort of like program. And it was the thing that was really exciting him. And then they said, oh no, you can't go to year 2 with a paid apprenticeship through your local CTE because you don't have enough art and PE credits to graduate. And it was like a scheduling problem. And it was during COVID. So instead of going through a paid apprenticeship in the thing that he loved, he had to take PE and art to graduate. And it was online because it was COVID. So I don't think PE is all that effective online.
Yeah.
So this is where I think we just sometimes lose the plot, and I'm not saying graduation requirements aren't important.
No.
I'm saying, can we be at the ground level together problem solving? Because when I hear that, I see a broken cog in a system.
Well, and I see why are we not leveraging pathways and personalized learning plans, right?
Bingo. Right, you've got tools in the toolbox already.
There's tons of tools in the toolbox.
It's just someone not being sort of there for that kid and supportive enough for the student.
And again, I think that's the belief system we need to create across our schools, right? Like I think if we're community schools, we're thinking outside the box where I'm always saying, how do we make certain the kid can? I don't want to hear no.
Yeah, right.
How are we going to make certain?
Yes.
Yeah, we got to get to yes.
That's that entrepreneurial spirit that I love. That's what it's all about. That's incredible. And then, right, so I hear from another person, well, we don't have enough mechanics because then you get so much more money as a mechanic than you do as a mechanic instructor. And so I asked CCV about that, and they said, yeah, no problem. We have such an agile model that we can do a night class. So a working mechanic can teach the class.
Awesome.
And it's better for everybody, right?
And again, we need to grow our state college, state university system, right? Like, it's not just our public schools that have hemorrhaged kids. It
goes all the way.
All the way.
Well, and you said something that was great about the Norwich example. This isn't just, and other places have done this, like Massachusetts, and so we know it's real. When you do the free community college for everybody, you get people into 4-year degrees.
Yep.
It's an absolute proven track into increasing enrollment because you're like, oh, I already have the 2 years paid for, so now we can really rock and roll, and then you get excited and you move forward. All right, look, I got one more hardball for you. What's your favorite cream you order?
I like maple creamies a lot.
Who doesn't? I mean, I gotta mix this up. All right, let me pivot.
Black raspberry would be number 2.
Do you ever do the twist?
I have done the twist. Actually, I've done a maple black raspberry before.
I've seen that on more menus than I've expected, that combo.
That's good.
And I feel like, do those flavors really mix?
They do. I think they do.
Okay, it's time for me to branch out.
Try one of those.
I love it. Thank you, Jamie. I just so appreciate your work, your vision, your time. You really got me fired up. I think we can do this. I really do.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's build Vermont together.
All right.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.